4 games, 360 minutes, 21,600 seconds approximately of football left to play at White Hart Lane, our loved and treasured home. In this e-Spurs special, we go back down memory lane and relive some of the special moments in what is going to be an emotional White Hart Lane goodbye. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur in this very special e-Spurs Leaving the Lane. Please don't forget you can subscribe to our show as always via iTunes or Acast and get every new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. You can catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms you can head to our brand new website of www.e-spurs.com. Just some administration before we start tonight's show. You may have noticed that there's a special petition at the moment running on change.org for a testimonial for Tottenham Hotspur ex-player and legend Mr. Darren Anderton, so feel free guys to get yourself involved in that. Darren Anderton played for Tottenham Hotspur for 12 years between 1992 to 2004, and whilst being a Tottenham Hotspur player he represented England on 30 occasions, scoring 7 goals. So it'd be great if we could give Darren Anderton the send-off he deserved at White Hart Lane, so feel free to get involved in that. Tonight I'm pleased to say we've got the voice of Tottenham Hotspur, Mr. Paul Coyte, joining us. Paul, how are you?
I'm really well, Ricky. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for asking me. It's very rarely I get asked to do these sorts of things, so I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Absolute pleasure to have you here. And I'm also pleased to say we've got on the channel with us tonight, we've got Sky Sports News HQ journalist and writer of the official Tottenham Hotspur Annuals, Michael Bridge. Michael, how are you?
Good, thanks, Ricky.
And also pleased to announce, as always, we've got Jason McGovern joining us. Jace, how are you?
Really good, mate. Thanks a lot.
Good, good. And Jace, just sticking with you a second, I understand you've done a very special interview this week. Do you just want to enlighten the listeners who you had a chat with?
Yeah, hopefully it'll be released in the next few days. I was up interviewing their old striker, Johnny Duncan, who people will remember from the 1974 through to the promotion season 1977. So good interview with John as he just goes through all his memories and talks through the big significant moments in his time at Spurs. And he'll actually be down, I think, for the North London derby against Arsenal at the end of April. So he's looking forward to that.
Where is he now then, Jace? Where is John Duncan now?
He actually works part-time for the League Managers Association.
Right, because he's been down. So look, I've jumped in already. I'm so sorry.
Go for it, Paul.
That's right, mate.
He's been down, and I saw him probably about, goodness me, it's about 6 or 7 years ago, and I think probably last time we saw him was at Glenn Hoddle's Hall of Fame, and haven't seen him since then. See, old hero of mine, you see. He was a good striker, old John, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, like I say, and if any of you guys want to catch that special podcast, that will be released on our YouTube channel and on our iTunes, so feel free to reach out to there. Guys, for those who don't know out there, I want to start with you, Paul. I can't believe people wouldn't know who you are, but do you want to give a background, Paul, as to what you do and your involvement with Tottenham Hotspur?
Yeah, I've been a Spurs fan since I was a little boy, so I've always, I still get asked, are you an actual Spurs fan? It's like, well, are you kidding me? So my dad was a Spurs fan. He took me for the first time when I was a little boy. My granddad was a Spurs fan. He went to the 21 Cup final, and so it's completely in the family. So I'd always been a Spurs fan, and I used to go with my dad, had a season ticket. Then he got ill, stopped going for a while, and then I was because I've always been on the radio, so I worked at Capital Gold at the time, and I was working with David Jensen. You remember Kid Jensen, David Jensen. So I was working with him, and I said, do you know anybody at Spurs? Because my wife's from Norwich, and it was the first time we played Norwich since I'd known her. And he said, yeah, I know this guy at Spurs. So there's a chap called Mike Rollo, who was in charge of the commercial department at the time, put me in touch with him. And Mike said to me, out of the blue, yeah, we'd love to have you come along. Would you be interested in hosting in one of the lounges? And I'm like, what, are you kidding me? So he said, well, just come along, see what you think. And, we'd love to have your dad and your wife come along and come and have a meal. I mean, I was knocked out by this. So then I got a call before saying Martin Chivers was injured. Martin Chivers wasn't available. So could I fill in for Martin Chivers? I'm like, I couldn't do that. So when I got there, and through radio, I'd interviewed film stars and pop stars, anybody famous at the time, I'd interviewed them. Never worried me at all. But when I went in, there were all my childhood heroes, all the Spurs players, and I was just like a blubbering wreck, and I couldn't really think. I was just thinking, oh God, how am I going to get through this? I don't know what to say, and I'm all hot and sweaty, just like a schoolgirl. And anyway, once I finally got on stage to do something at the end, which was like a man of the match, then it sort of went into work mode, and it was very easy, and it was fine. And then they said, well, can you come back next week? And can you come back next week? Then a year later, they said, can you do the thing on the pitch at half-time with David Ginola? I nearly passed out on the pitch, which is another story, which is absolutely true. I got head rushed because I was so overwhelmed by it. And then I got away with that. And I've been pretty much getting away with it ever since. So every year, so I do all the hospitality, I do all their dinners, I do like a end of season awards, supporters stuff. So anything that needs a host, I'll do it. And anything on the pitch and I just get, and honestly, at the end of every season, I still think, this is it now. They're going to say, go back to the seat where you should be sitting, and, you've been getting away with this too long. But it's been going on for 12 years, so it's the bet, and for a Spurs fan, it's the best job in the world, really.
And you've seen some amazing games, Paul, which I know we're going to touch on. I want to bring Michael in. Michael, for you as well, in terms of your affiliation with Spurs, do you just want to give the guys out there just an insight into what your background is?
Yeah, well, I'm in my 10th year at Sky Sports News, but I do a bit of work for Tottenham as well. I write the official club annuals, and if selected this year, this would be in my 8th year. So, I enjoy working with the club, and obviously it's the club I support, so which obviously makes everything a lot easier. I've had a season ticket all my life. My family have had a season ticket all their life. So, it was always Tottenham for me. I'm from Enfield, so from that area, you're either Spurs or Arsenal, really. Mainly Spurs. And so, absolutely been a Tottenham fan all my life. But obviously, I'm not as fortunate. I'm not able to get to every single home match now because I work a hell of a lot of weekends at Sky. But with this world of social media and everything, you don't miss a single trick. So, but Spurs still very, very much at the forefront of my mind.
Paul, I want to bring it back to yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously, working for the club now directly, which I mean, outside being a player, that probably is the next best thing I would imagine.
Honestly, I think it is. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous.
Obviously, many will see you on the pitch at half-time, but bringing it back, what was your first memories of White Hart Lane for you?
First memory was the 14th of February. It was a long time ago. 14th of February, 1976. My uncle had a season ticket, and I'd never been, and my dad always went, during the double year, and he was always a regular, and then stopped going. And my uncles thought, it was time now. I was a little boy, and then whether my dad wanted to take me to Spurs, which of course I was mad about. There was a choice of 2 games. February the 7th was West Ham, and I wanted us to, I wanted to go and see us play a big team, so we decided that we weren't going to do that one. And then, so it was Queen's Park Rangers, and we thought, well, at least there's a game that we're going to win, and then Paul can see the first game, see us win. But it coincided with Queen's Park Rangers then having this turn of fortune and ended up coming second in the league to Liverpool, nearly winning it. And we lost 3-0. And I went home, and I still remember walking up the path at home, walking in, seeing my mum, and she went, how did they go? And I went, we lost 3-0. Cried my eyes out. Nothing changes. But the thing I still remember, and I remember everything about it, I remember we used to park about a mile away and then walk in. And these are little things that, and I'm spoilt now, that I miss doing, was the walk, and then you start feeling the atmosphere build, and then it would build, and then we'd start getting closer and closer. And the front of that West Stand, it was the really old one that had Tottenham Hotspur Football Club in big letters. And I remember the moment I saw that, and it was just like, oh my God, that's it. There it is. Walking through the old turnstiles, and the moment I saw the pitch for the first time, and I still say about there was things at halftime. I remember the smell of panatella, which you don't get anymore because obviously being no smoking, but all dads used to smoke panatellas, these little thin cigars at halftime. So there's that smell of that, And I used to get a bar of chocolate, and still always reminds me of that. And I'll never forget it. And it's still there all these years on. But that was the first experience.
I was going to say to you, Paul, is it still the same now? Do you still kind of get that goosebump feeling in terms of being at the Lane? Is it still the same for you there?
Well, I'll tell you, Ricky, I'll be honest with you, it's a bit different now. Because I'm rushing around all over the place, and I don't really get a chance to. I'm not usually there in my seat when the team come out. But what I'll do is when I go to away games, and I've got a 9-year-old son, so I take him. And when I go, I'll buy a ticket, and then I'll go along to the away games, and then I get the feeling again. When I see the team run out, then I get the old hairs on the back of the neck, and I think it's still there. It is still there. It's a different feeling. When I'm watching the game, I still feel the same. I watch it with all the old legends, and they go as nuts as I do when we score goals, and it's their Spurs supporters all through and through, and we just go bananas. So that's all still the same, but I get that same excitement. The real feeling is when I go to an away game, because then I can just sit, take it all in, and concentrate on it without thinking about work, if you see what I mean.
Just on that, Paul, my first game was the very week before you went then.
Was it the West Ham one?
West Ham game.
Isn't that funny? It was 1-1, wasn't it?
The 1-1 game, and that's Johnny Duncan, and that was part of it. He scored the first live goal I saw. So, yep, I was there the week before you.
See, an amazing thing, Jace, is that you're 30 years older than me as well. How did that happen? Because I was like 2 or something. But seriously, isn't that funny? What a coincidence! Within a week.
Within a week. There you go.
I got the old clippings from it, and I was sent those on an email. And there's no film of it, because in those days, of course, match of the day or the big match, there'd only be 3 games, wouldn't there? There'd only be 1 London game, and the chances of it being televised. But I've still got pictures of it, and I wish there was more, and I've still got the programme and remember so much about it. But just a shame we bloody lost. But there you go. That's Spurs for you, isn't it? Just when you expect something great.
That is Spurs. I think the greatest point you said there, Paul, is when you first got home from the game, they made you cry, and they still do exactly the same now. Although it is less frequency, because the form is great at the moment. It really is.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
But I find I get over it quicker these days. It took me longer. I mean, when we lose, I'd be interested to know, all of you, when we've had a really bad loss, and luckily, Ricky, like you say, it's been a while since it's happened. How long does it take you until you're fine, and then you just move on, and then you just forget about it? Are you quite quick, or does it take a while?
For me, I'm still getting over Newcastle at the end of last season.
You really?
I looked at a flight home after the game. I can't let it go until we finish above a certain other team.
Yeah.
And it's not pathetic, because you hear St Tottenham's Day, St Tottenham's Day. It's a local rivalry, and we only had to get a point against Southampton or Newcastle. And it was hard for Pochettino as well, because the players went on their holidays, went to the European Championships, and that is the result that still sticks in my head. I can't help it.
I've got to say with Michael there, I do get better in terms of defeats, but that one there, it does stick in my mind. But I think the greatest thing about Pochettino is that apparently you really did give them a rollicking on the first day of pre-season when they came back in. I thought that was great to hear, although obviously the damage had been done. Coming to you, Michael, first memories for you at White Hart Lane?
Well, I'm 31 years of age. My first memory is back in 1993. It was Good Friday. It was against a very good Norwich side at the time, and we won 5-1. It was Good Friday, and I genuinely still remember the game. And the guys will all remember, Norwich were quite good then. I think they're in the top 4 around then, sort of second, third. And I think that was the year after they beat Bayern Munich. So
that's right,
they were a pretty decent side under Mike Walker. So it was a big result, and I think after that, we beat Oldham 5-0 in the 93-94 season. So it was all from there, really. And then basically my dad took me from then ever since. And then about 8 years later, I was a ball boy at Tottenham for 2 years. So.
Were you really?
Yeah.
So, God, how brilliant. So where did you stand then?
I was West Lower.
Did you get the ball much?
I did, and I have to say, I'm still shaking at a George Graham hairdryer. I threw the ball back to an opposition player a bit too quick, and I was shaking, absolutely shaking.
What a bully! How old were you, for crying out loud?
I was only 23. No, I think I was. I can't.
24 now, Michael.
I was in my early teens, but and it didn't help. I think that was the game where he had a bit of a row with a few of the fans near him because he took off David, the fans weren't very keen because it wasn't the best time to be a Spurs fan. The football wasn't great, and David
wasn't that Watford game, was it? Because that still sticks in my mind.
I think we beat them 4-0, didn't we?
Yeah, it was at Christmas, and I still remember that was, how pathetic is this? This is when I was thinking of giving him my season ticket, because at the time I was happy to pay my season ticket just to watch David's feet. I mean, the guy was unbelievable, and then he was putting on this show for everybody. It was like a Christmas performance. And then George took him off. And it was just like, you have got to be kidding me. And then he gives you a rollicking. If I'd have known that, then I would have...
I know. Then
George?
But I mean, that's actually a special game for me as well, because I had a long chat with Graham Taylor in the tunnel, and, what a lovely man he was. And obviously when he's passing a couple of months ago, so that was really sad. And I mean, I was incredibly lucky to have had that privilege. And but then after that, back to being a season ticket holder. I absolutely love going to Spurs, and nothing's changed. And in terms of when you say about how you feel after a defeat, I'd just say one thing about that. We've hardly tasted defeat this season, and it's so great to see this Tottenham side so hard to beat. And I'd say probably only one or two times, like forgetting the Champions League at the moment, but the one time I was genuinely really peeved with the result and performance was probably Liverpool away. Apart from that, Chelsea away, I can't be too despondent, but so feeling disappointed this season that those moments are few and far between, which is great.
Do you watch Ball Boys now though, like an old player, and think, I used to throw it back better? He's look at it. He's no spin on it. He should have holding on to it wrong. I mean, do you look at these boys and think they're not?
I do look at the Ball Boys, and I just think. Do you remember the incident with Swansea and Eden Hazard a few years ago?
Yes.
I mean, I thought, goodness me, but cocky little thing he was. So
Not respecting Ball Boys like they used to be in the 90s.
Absolutely. Do you remember Shoot for a Holiday, Coyte? Do you remember that?
What we used to do I used to do the deck chair challenge. We used to
So I think they need to bring that back sometimes when your services are not required, obviously, or when you can actually do it.
Hang on,
you have a job, Paul.
Hold on. I did bring that back at Christmas because I get more messages about when are you going to bring enough of the same old bloody questions. When are you going to bring back the deck chair challenge? So I did it at Christmas because they wanted to do a shoot for something. So I said, well, let's make it a Christmas tree challenge. Our last season at the Lane, let's do a deck chair challenge with Christmas trees. So it was kind of a nod to that.
What we'll do is we'll bring it around. Jace, coming to you. In terms of, we've discussed first games, players for you, Jace, that stand out from a Spurs perspective at White Hart Lane. Who's the one player that would epitomise the time you spent in the Lane for you, being in that stadium?
The one player that I'll always remember, but it's a part of a cheat, really, I suppose, is the night that I saw Maradona in a Spurs shirt. For me, that's the best player I've ever seen in a Spurs shirt. But because it was only one game, I suppose we can't count it too much. But fortunately enough, I saw most of Glenn Hoddle's time, and Glenn Hoddle was just amazing. The passing, the shooting, the backspin that he could hit on balls. He never played people talk about long ball game. He could hit a long ball, but it was an absolute spot on pass almost every time, 60, 70 yards with backspin, and your Crooks and Archibald would just race straight onto it. But fantastic skills and things like that, and even when you actually look back, people with Glenn, he gets thought of as a soft player, but in the late 70s and that early 80s, when football was a much more physical game with tackling from behind, pitches were nowhere near the pitches that they are today. To see him be able to weave his magic and shrug people off, two-footed, there was no soft touch to Glenn at all. He could certainly look after himself on the pitch, and was never kicked out of games and things. And he's probably the best player I've ever seen. Yeah, definitely.
Would you go along with that chat? What about Paul, for you? I know you and Jace kind of in the same era as such. Would you go along with that, Paul?
Yeah, Hoddle, for me, it was unbelievable. We used to get there early just to watch him warm up. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. And Jace is right. There was all this stuff that used to go on, and it was absolute cobblers, he doesn't do enough, he doesn't tackle enough. It's like, well, that's not his job. And it was insane, and it was absolute madness that he never got to play 150 times for England because he was the best player in the country. And he would get the ball, and like Jason said, he'd hit an 80-yard pass, but he'd be facing the other way. The guy had eyes in the back of his head. He would just turn and he would land anything on a sixpence, and just the greatest. I mean, Gaza was up there for me. It's between the two of them were the greatest I ever saw. And but Hoddle was just brilliant. I mean, really, absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, he seems like a magician. Obviously, for me being a bit younger, obviously I've seen the videos back. He seems, I mean, in his day now, in his pomp, if you put him next to the likes of Messi and Ronaldo, what a player, like I say, Glenn would have been in this era. Michael, bringing it to you. I know you've mentioned David Ginola. Would he be your pick in terms of growing up? Anyone else stand out for you at all?
He was only there, obviously, from one season. He had another sort of stint. It was obviously Jurgen Klinsmann. I just remember at the time, you know, when you didn't have the likes of Sky Sports News, you know, you get a signing Jurgen Klinsmann, you look at the paper and go, wow, this is unbelievable. And again, Spurs weren't doing anything in the Premier League at all at that time. And to have signed a player of that calibre, I think coming off the back of a really good World Cup in America in '94, it was just amazing. You know, you had Klinsmann 18 on the back of your shirt. You know, he was obviously such a special player to watch. And I've got to say, over the modern times, Gareth Bale was winning games for this Tottenham side under AVB single-handedly. And I'm sorry, Tottenham should have finished in the top four with Gareth there. He was, that last season before he left, he was absolutely incredible. And especially near the end of the season, where he wasn't fit, he still had foot injuries, and he was scoring goals. I think it was against Southampton, Sunderland, ridiculous goals. He had no right to score from those angles, and he got them in every time. And he was an absolute pleasure to play for. And as you see, he's won 2 Champions Leagues since. What
do you reckon, Michael? You put him in this Tottenham team now. Would we win this league? What do you think?
Well, I mean, we'd still catch some form of Tottenhamitis, wouldn't we? Something would go wrong, I don't know. But, I mean, I don't know. He's just such an amazing player. I mean, of course, we would... Ricky, that's a really good question. You know, last season Leicester was a freak. It was just unbelievable. This year Chelsea are absolutely running away with it. Would we catch Chelsea with Bale? Who knows? You know, I don't know.
I think it'd be Chelsea trying to catch us with Bale. I think we'd be miles clear of
them. Yeah, very possibly, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things. You know, we didn't have. It was probably our away form that's doing us a bit of harm this season, which is unlike the last few seasons. But it's incredibly mouthwatering to think of Bale in this side. Absolutely. I mean, as you say, we all probably know the problem. We probably need a bit of a stronger bench from the likes of Harry or someone needs to come off or injured. And you are looking around, sometimes the bench looks a bit thin, but you put someone like Gareth in who's a genuine world-class player, and you're absolutely right. You know, Tottenham could easily win the title.
See, in my opinion, over the years, and we talk about Klinsmann, we talk about Hoddle, and you talk about Gareth Bale as well, we've always had game changers. There's always been a player in there who has been unbelievable and who's been worth the season ticket. And it's often been, there's one or two, and the rest of them around that player or those players were never up to their standard, which is the reason we never got anywhere. Whereas now, for the first time, each one is better and better, and it's the best collective team I think we've had in a as far as I can remember. And it's and also we're building in the right way. Say, oh yeah, we could have done that. This is we're probably not going to get there this season, but each season I think a little bit more, little bit, and then by the time we get there, which hopefully next season, or who knows what we're going to do for the rest of the season, I think that means we're there to stay. I really do.
What do you think, Paul? Because obviously you're there, you see it up close and personal. The camaraderie between the fans and the players, I mean, I've never witnessed it as good as it is right now. The form at the Lane is absolutely formidable. It's 19 games unbeaten at home in all competitions at White Hart Lane. Only team unbeaten at home in the Premier League this season. 4 games remaining. I mean, we have really made the Lane a fortress this season. What do you put it down to, Paul?
Pochettino. Simple as that. I put it down to Mauricio Pochettino. I think over the years we've had that soft underbelly. You never knew what Spurs you were going to get. And that's lasted probably as long as I've been supporting them. And then you watch it and you think, oh, you know straight away what Spurs is going to turn up. And it doesn't really happen anymore. And I don't think he doesn't suffer fools. I think the players he's got are professionals. They want to win. They go out and they give it everything every time. And they're all great players. And I just can't, in each time, it's just getting better and better. And I put it down to him. I really do. I mean, there's a lot to be said for the players, but I think a lot of the players that are coming in are also down to him as well. I mean, I speak to some... I did a thing with Toby... Now, I'm going to get the pronunciation right because there's a ch in there. Toby Alderweireld. And it was this... I think it was the end of last season. And people... And I think it was a fans forum, and people were asking him questions, and he says, well, you know, I don't go out. I don't do that sort of thing. I don't do this. I don't know, because... I could do all that when I finish playing. At the moment, my life revolves around my game. And he's a professional. He's a top pro. And the majority of them, They're all lovely as well. It's the best bunch of players that I've known since I've worked there, and they're all great as well. I know I sound like I'm just like towing the company line and saying how great everything is, but I'm really, really excited. I think everybody is, don't you?
I think anyone, Paul, that's seen Spurs this season, and like I say, growing in the last few years, can really see the collective bond between the players and, like I say, the fans, and that is so much translated into the form at White Hart Lane. It really is, like I say.
I was just going to say, I get a lot of tweets from fans, and I get people go, "Oh, why does Sky always go on about Klopp? Why does Sky always go on about Mourinho? Why does Sky always go on about Pep?" What I always say to them is, do you really want a manager that always gives you a soundbite? Because I don't.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And what a lot of the people miss when they are saying this to me, they're missing that sometimes we're putting on an interview, a grab, which Klopp has said of Guardiola, and sometimes we're just letting it play and you think, did he really say that? You know, sometimes the comments are strange. You know, when you heard Jose after a Europa League game, he said, "I think we'll lose at Middlesbrough." Now, if Poch came out and said that, can you imagine Spurs Twitter? Now, but that's up to Jose Mourinho, and he's great at what he does. But as Paul will know, he's met Poch numerous occasions. I've met Maurizio a couple of times, and he's the nicest guy, really lovely guy. And you just look at what he's done. Danny Rose. Did you see Twitter when Danny Rose signed his first contract 3 years ago? Goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
It went into absolute meltdown. He's turned decent players into top players. Carl Walker, Danny Rose. He's bringing through the likes of Harry Winks. I mean, the list is endless, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
Dembele, Wanyama.
Harry Kane.
Yeah, it's
Harry Kane's the best in the world. You know, there's no point debating it. Because he doesn't go to nightclubs, because he doesn't stumble out at 4 a.m. That's why he's not in the headlines. You don't want him on the sidebar of the Daily Mail online. So for me, I'm proud to have him as our head coach, as our manager. Will it be forever? Of course not. He'll move one day because nothing's forever. But for now, we've got a manager who's really engaged with the supporters. He doesn't come out with sound bites like, "we is us, this, that and the other," blah, blah. He doesn't need to do that. We know he loves the club. He's really ingrained into the club, and hopefully long may that continue.
See, there's no reason. I mean, I'm driving back from Spurs the other day, and I'm listening to some rubbish on the radio. They're sitting there going, "Well, he's going to go. See, what if the Barcelona job comes up? He's going to want to go there. He's going to." Why? Why would you want to go? Yeah. Because let's face it, it's a poison chalice if you go over to Real Madrid or go to Barcelona. What do you got? 3 years absolutely at the maximum, and then where'd you go? He's building something which is so exciting. Look at what we've got. We've got a stadium. When that's going to be ready, the team's doing whatever we're capable of so much. There's absolutely no reason why he should.
And we have a board, and Daniel Levy is clearly, obviously for Daniel took a lot of, he was involved a lot in transfers with previous managers / head coaches. There's a true working and understanding there between the two now, and you really feel that Daniel Levy has given, and he's got real trust in Pochettino to get the right players, the right scout, the right recruitment. And as you rightly say, Paul, I don't think Pochettino will throw that away easily at all.
I think, like I say, the hope for us is we can keep hold of him, because what he has done, whatever happens, and like we've said, he won't be with us here forever, as much as, like I say, I think the majority would love him to be, but he has most certainly laid down the foundations for success, and that's in his own words. I think, like I say, that's what he's tried to do, and it's very... When you can see it on the pitch, it's translation in terms of where we are in the league, how consistent we've been in most recent years, the form at White Hart Lane, the progression of the youngsters, his willingness to give these guys, the youth, a chance, bringing you in, Jace. I mean, we've talked about this season in terms of progression at Spurs. I know it's difficult. If you had to pick a game for you at White Hart Lane that would really stand out, maybe going back or even looking at this season, any particular game for you, White Hart Lane?
The most memorable night is that UEFA Cup win against Anderlecht. I think that's to see a trophy lifted on your own ground, and particularly the drama of that night of having a two-legged final and going all the way through extra time and into a penalty shootout, and then looking like we'd messed the penalty shootout up when Danny Thomas missed. But to see a reserve goalkeeper be the hero that night, and Robbo's equaliser, and you felt on the night because Stevie Perryman, of course, had been suspended, I think, after the first semi-final out in Belgium, so he wasn't there as a skipper that night. I think Glenn was missing that night as well. few injury problems and things like that, and you kind of thought if anyone is going to equalise tonight, it's Robbo, and sure enough, Robbo was the one that come up with the goal, and which obviously then takes it to extra time and the penalty. So I think that night, more than any other night, is my favourite day at White Hart Lane for sure.
I'm bringing it to you, Michael. Any particular game stand out for you at the Lane?
Unfortunately, when I started going to Tottenham, it was probably our worst era for decades.
The 90s.
Is it going to involve Paolo Tramezzani, this game, by any chance?
The 90s weren't particularly enjoyable, but there was some highlights, in the early 2000s. The Chelsea 5-1 League Cup win in the second leg. It was a strong Chelsea side, and Spurs, a bit of an aging side. We won 5-1 that night. That was a brilliant performance. Arsenal 5-1 in the League Cup, another great night. Wigan 9-1.
Yeah.
9-1s you're going to see in your life. I probably won't see another one again. And obviously Jermaine, who I absolutely love, was phenomenal, scoring the 5 goals. It was a really special night for me. Was Spurs beating Inter Milan 3-1 in the Champions League. Gareth Bale that night, incredible. It was a great Champions League campaign, and and that was a night that will live long in the memory.
Yeah, it was a very special night. And Paul, for you, going to games as a youngster, even like I say now, any particular game stand out for you that really kind of, still gives you goosebumps?
Oh, God. Well, you know what? I'd love to have been at the 84, but funny enough, the ironic thing is that I did my first ever hospital radio show that day and I missed the game. So the irony is that if I hadn't done that, then I probably wouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing now, and if I got to the game. So I missed that. I think the one that Michael said, 2nd of November 2010, Spurs 3, Inter Milan 1. It was just unbelievable. Everything came together. I was talking to Clive Allen about this the other day, and he still says, as a player and a coach, that was still his favourite game, because it was just the way it felt. And as a kid, I remember us beating Liverpool, and Ralph Coates scored, and we won 1-0. And I had a very, very cool and attractive Spurs identity bracelet, and it was very, very nice, and I looked really great in it. And as the final whistle went, I cheered, and this identity bracelet went flying down from the east stand to the east lower, to probably down towards the shelf somewhere. So I lost that. So that was pretty upsetting. But the game, though, I did actually live up to the expectation. But that was a game I'll never forget.
Yeah.
You never had a Spurs identity bracelet, Ricky?
I haven't, though. But
Spurs store. I don't know why. I think they're very, very nice.
They might chuck that in, Paul, with the new season ticket renewals. What do you reckon? Do you reckon they might chuck one in?
It had Spurs across the middle, and it had the cockerel on one side and then the cockerel on the other side facing the other way, just to make it symmetrical. It was a very, very nice piece of jewellery, really. Cost me at least 80 pence, I think it was, as well.
That'll probably be a very much antique now, Paul. That might go for a very big value. You never know. What I was going to say, chaps, is if we were to try and look at where the club made that kind of upturn, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, I think if we look at maybe possibly Martin Jol, would you say that was the kind of the starting point as to where we maybe have got to now, in terms of you've seen an upward rise from the club? What do you think, Michael, coming to you? Would you go along with that? I mean, we saw Martin Jol, there was a consistency in terms of getting Spurs fifth. We kind of got back into European football. There's that crazy 4-4 game at the Lane, that 125th club anniversary game where we were 4-1 down, and lo and behold we got back to 4-4. I still don't know how we did that game. Would you say that's the pinpoint as to where the upward rise started with Spurs?
Oh, Ricky, that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. I mean, during those years, there was a lot of upheaval with the director of football. You got Frank Arneson going, Damien Comolli coming in. I love Martin Jol. I really genuinely, I had a lovely, really good relationship with him. But there are so many games where we threw away. I question a lot of Martin's substitutions, and also I just question the way we handled the Pedro Mendes incident at Manchester United. I didn't know what, if that was the other way round, I'm convinced we'd have had some sort of replay. That's still.
What do you mean? And what could we have done then under that situation?
I don't know. I just didn't like the way we were shaking hands and smiling with the fourth official and the linesman at the end of the game. I was just so angry. It was nearer than
in the face, can you?
No, but I mean, let's face it. If you look back at it, we were all smiling and shaking hands with the fourth official. We should have won that game. And everyone's saying to me, Spurs are still without a win at Old Trafford for X amount of years. I say, well, the ball was near the net than the line, But going back to your original question, I think there's been a progression as the years have gone on, but we've got the structure right and the signings improved, and we signed youngsters, and like Lennon at the time was only £1 million. and then you got the Van der Vaarts. So the signings were better. We've seen a gradual progress. I mean, Martin Jol was very, very popular with the supporters. The last trophy we won was under One Day Ramos. We need to change that. Andre Villas-Boas did okay. I still think he could have done better with Gareth Bale, but I've already mentioned that. Record points total, blah, blah, blah. Still finished 5th. And then Harry. I mean, I know people are divided with Harry because he's this, he's that. Well, I'm sorry. He got Tottenham to the Champions League quarter-final. And people compare his side with Pochettino. Why? What's the point? Different era. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But that's me. I was in Milan for those games, and that was a really good Spurs side. Then Crouch, it all worked. I loved Berbatov. Absolutely loved Berbatov at Tottenham. I know it ended on a sour note, but him and Keane with Defoe coming off the bench. Oh, what strikers we had.
Yeah.
But look, it's great now. We've broken that sort of top 4 hood. We look like we're hopefully, touchwood, we're more regulars of the top 4 now, because let's face it, it's going to be extremely difficult next season, assuming it will be Wembley, because you'll get all the sides treating it as cup finals, and, fair enough. I'm extremely happy with the way things are now, and I suppose we have had a gradual progress over the years.
Coming to you, Jace, what do you think? If you had to kind of pinpoint an upward rise in Spurs, I know we don't get a chance to do this much in terms of the pod because we normally are sitting here reviewing and previewing games, but if you had to maybe highlight one particular moment where it just started to rise, what would you go with?
God, you're right. It's tough, isn't it? Because managerially, I find it strange that probably the 2 managers that we dislike the most are actually the last 2 to win trophies in the man with the raincoat and Juan de Ramos. So that seems strange, but I was really sad when Glenn departed. I think we all had high hopes when Glenn took over, and I can remember all singing "We've got our Tottenham back," and for a short time it looked like it was going to work out, didn't it? And he had us top of the league in an August and a September, and you thought, yep, we're playing that sparkling football, but that soon disappeared. But I think each of those managers of our main managers has taken it on. I thought Jol took us from a underperforming side into a genuine, I suppose you could call it best of the rest type thing. And then when he went, Harry took it over, and he took us into a side that was challenging for a top 4. And now Poch has taken over. He's taken it from a side that challenges for a top 4 to delivers top 4 and hopefully delivers Champions League football back to back. It's difficult to pinpoint any particular time. I think Robbie Keane as well coming in lifted the whole atmosphere at the club. I think that was perhaps in Glenn's time we were signing established older players, wasn't we? We'd signed Teddy had come back, and Gus Poyet and people like that came in, but Robbie Keane I thought was the first new young guns as such that was coming in, a player that was still hasn't at his peak and had a massive impact on the club.
Yeah, special times. And Paul, for you, in terms of trying to bring it back to the modern day, games maybe this season, last season that stand out. I mean, for me personally, I would probably say the Spurs, the 2-1 against Arsenal. Arsenal take the lead through Mesut Ozil. Spurs completely bully Arsenal all game. Get back into the game through Harry Kane. He then scores in, I think, 91st minute. And I think that's the point where Harry Kane, that moment there is when you know this guy is going to go on to be a star. For you, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the recent games against Manchester City at White Hart Lane as well say a lot, because there was a time a couple of years back when we were getting smashed, weren't we, by them, and absolutely dreading to play when we were going to play Man City, and we've just gone out and just tore them apart like this season. I just thought was just brilliant, and that's when I'm looking at them and think, you know what, this is the best Spurs team that I've seen. Yes, Arsenal, very much looking forward to the Arsenal game, but I've got to be careful. I think, Michael, you touched on that as well. I'm not one of these giving it all the mind the gap and stuff like that, because talk about once bitten. We've seen it so many times. I will enjoy it at the end of the season. If it happens, I'll enjoy it, should we beat them. But at the moment, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. You did mention that one quick story I'll tell you was when you mentioned that 125th game, the 125 anniversary against Aston Villa.
Yeah. And
before the game, we had just a huge lineup of ex-Spurs players, and I was going to bring them all out one by one. And if you remember, everybody had flags on the seats. So I was out there, and I remember the guy saying to me, look, right, okay, you just call them out and then we'll line them all up. Anyway, they brought the camera over to me and then they just said, we're not ready. You're going to have to fill. And I'm like, what, are you kidding me? What am I supposed to talk about? I'm going to fill? So out the corner of my eye, I've completely forgotten about the flags. Out the corner of my eye, I saw a little boy and he just had that flag and he was just fluttering it around by his knee. And that was the only thing I saw. And if it wasn't for that moment and them saying Phil, because that moment I just went, everybody, before we do this, everybody in the ground, wave your flag. And that's probably the moment of all the things at White Hart Lane that I've seen, probably standing in the middle and looking around and thinking, I just said wave your flags, and seeing that moment of all those flags and then the players coming out was unbelievable. So that was, and it was all pretty much down to the fact the players were late.
And you created that, Paul. You created that moment. Unbelievable.
Yeah, by default, but yes.
Michael, coming back to you. Did you want to chip in there?
Sorry, Ricky. Yeah, I was just going to say briefly as well. Obviously, yeah, Paul, I don't want to keep talking about the opposition as well and mind the gap nonsense. And also, I just hope for the next few games and until those do get confirmation that hopefully they'll finish, obviously second or third. But, no more of this Arsene Wenger, we want you to stay. Come on, he's finished above Tottenham for 20 odd years. He's not that blackbird. Let's just talk about Spurs. Let's sing about Spurs. I know that Arsenal, West Ham and Chelsea sing about Spurs nearly every game. I hear it on a work capacity and as a supporter. But however, the players need our backing for the next few games. No more Arsene Wenger songs, and let's get behind the team.
Yep.
Completely agree. We'll try and bring it back to modern day, chaps. I know we're trying to cover the lane as well. For you, Jace, we've spoke about what constitutes success. I want to see what the guys think about it. Bringing it to you first, Paul. I know obviously you're working for the club. Taking that kind of hat off from a personal fan perspective.
I can't take that hat off. It's perfectly stuck on my head. There's no way I can take that hat off.
Well, going from your personal perspective, Paul, for you, what would be success in your eyes for this season?
For this season, I want to win something. I want to win the Cup. I want to win the FA Cup. I think well, obviously we need to get top four. But I would give up second to win the Cup. I want us to win something this year. I think everybody at the club does. I think you need to win silverware. All the ex-players that I speak to every single week, they all say the same thing. You're only judged on what you've won as a player. So we need to win something. And I think, there's great times ahead and I want to win the Cup this year. I really do.
That's all for part one, but be sure to keep an eye out on both our YouTube and iTunes links where you'll find part two of this very special e-Spurs podcast out very, very shortly. You can as well always leave a review if you like what you hear from the guys, and as always, come on you Spurs!